Hi beautiful people, Hayley Weezy here from Making Go Oils. Today I'm going to run through how to run a class really effectively incorporating psychology of sales, and actually so you realise how amazing this Empower Kit is and how well it's planned out, and it might encourage you to actually kind of stick to it a little bit more because it's actually set out for a really great purpose. So I'm just going to cover the psychology of sales just very briefly first, so bear with me. So this is like a process that you go through, and if you track through this, you kind of get people making their own decision rather than having to sell to them. So first you want to list off issues that they may be going through. So normally when someone enrolls in a workshop, or they've written down on the draw list or on their I have a sign-on sheet, 3 things that they're hoping to support themselves with the oils in their life. So they've already identified issues or come to the workshop with issues. You want to ask, like, how is this evident? How does this show up in your life? You then want to go and see what impact that has. So do they have this constant niggle in their back, which is actually not allowing them to pick up their child anymore, and it's affecting how they connect with their children? It's actually really breaking her heart because she wants to pick her kids up, but she can't because her back's always sore. You know what I mean? So you can actually get into the emotional side of the problem that is really just, oh, here's some ice glue. You know what I mean? So what would it look like if all of a sudden we could sprinkle magic fairy dust and your sore back all of a sudden wasn't so sore anymore? How would that improve your life? How would that look? How would that feel? And then that is going to be like, how does that impact your life with the connection of with you and your children, the fact that you can get back into activity again, all of these kind of things, which I'm totally making up, by the way. But you can see how it's a flow. And you're there to serve the person for a need that they have, rather than just try and sell them ice glue. Okay, so think about this, and I'm going to show you how doTERRA have actually incorporated this process through the Empower Kit. Now, when you're running a class, there's a few simple things to do first, and don't stress, I'm going to rush through these pretty fast, but there are videos of all of these sections, so just go back and see how to host, how to coach, how to do your preps and your intros and all that kind of stuff. But to set up and welcome, arrive 30 minutes before, remind the coach how to coach the host about the flow and how to support, run through what not to say. I've done a great video on that one. Start your class, edify the host can edify you, thank the host. You know, you do that to and you're throwing. It's a really lovely way to build trust, not only with the people that you don't necessarily know at the workshop, but also with the person that is hosting the workshop for you if you're not doing it yourself. Introduce yourself. This is a really important thing to practice, but it also doesn't want to be too lengthy, because then at the end of the day they're there for themselves. So just make it about them, but give them a really powerful, reason why you're doing what you're doing. It could be a little story or something about a couple of minutes. Make sure everyone has completed a sign-on sheet. Sometimes people use the drawing cards, whichever it is. Make sure you have some of their details. And as people arrive, common questions to ask is, what would you love to learn today? Have you used essential oils before? What do you do? Just so you know a little bit more about the people arriving. And introduce the sheets, okay? So you make sure that you always talk about and work through those sheets, and Lee's done a wonderful video on that. So I'm going to run through how you actually talk about each section in here and why it's really important, and things that you can do to actually mark down and stop and pause and focus on specific areas. So at this point in time, I normally hand around a balance. I get them grounded. I talk about, tree and root-based oils, and get them to be present, because quite often in busy day lives, this could have been the first time that mother has actually sat down and taken a breath without the children climbing all over her. So honour that and allow them to just relax. You might have some peppermint bliss balls. I just talk through literally point 1 word for word. When I go into number 2, this is where I love to ask a question, and it's at the end. And the reason I ask a question is because you actually want to know who the person making your decision is in the family on their healthcare. Because if you ask here, so I'm just curious, who makes a decision in your family when it comes to healthcare? If you ask this question at this point and people go, yeah, I do, guess what they've just done? They've admitted and given themselves permission to make a decision on the day if they feel like this is the right fit for their family, because they've just said that they are the person that makes the decision. If they say, oh, my husband's a paramedic, he does it all, at least you know who that she might have to go back and speak to him if this is something that they would like to incorporate into their family. So what is important to you when choosing a method to support your family? And if you had a choice between synthetic and natural, would you, which both had proven effectiveness, what would you prefer? So again, you're prompting them about, would you prefer, if you had something that's natural versus synthetic, what would you choose? So these are great questions to ask just at this point. Again, this is something that again I just read through. It's great to emphasize and remind people here, if they have used essential oils previously, because especially with the blue circle, you can actually identify where their current essential oils may have been without talking them down. We don't want to talk down other essential oil companies. We just want to make sure that we educate them why ours are considered the best in the world. Then this is a really fun area because, did I make a mark on it? No. Okay. So with internal use, I tend to just leave it very open because some people can get quite funny about it. But I just tend to use, like, if you choose to use internally, these are different ways that you can, and just takes the stigma out of it. If someone has been trained in essential oils, they don't feel comfortable doing, that's totally fine, totally fine. And I always mention in this spot specifically not to use plastics with essential oils if they decide to put it in a glass of water or something like that. Topical, I will always have my ice blue rub. Okay, so I've gone through how this encourages loyalty rewards and activating loyalty rewards in a class. And I also hand around, I told you about the cream when I'm talking about topical application. So by having these available to you with the FCO, it's really something that you can actually hand around and get them to feel the consistency of FCO, feel the creams, apply the other creams. And I would also have a petal, and I would show them how the petal works in the aromatic section of this point. And this is not too extensive, it is just quite short, but it is nice just to have it there and show them so they're familiar with it. But this is where it gets exciting. This is probably the one area that I completely overlooked, but you guys really need to fall in love with this pyramid. And what we're going to do is actually work from the top down. Okay, so what I want you to do is ask people to get a pen. It's a non-judgment zone, and I'm going to get them to rate between 1 and 10 or 1 and 5 or whatever you like on how they're reacting between this. Because what this is doing is they're starting to determine and paint a picture of where their health is currently at for their family. So you would go through each of these. Proactive medical care. How do you feel with your amount of choices that you currently have? If you had a sore head or a sore tummy and you needed to go to support in those areas, do you have something natural that you can turn to or something synthetic? Now remember, you've already asked them, what would you prefer? And I bet you they're going to say something natural. But then if all of a sudden they've only answered that they've only got synthetic options, well, that's not meeting their needs, is it, or their preferences? You then go informed self-care. So, okay, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling stressed. Oh, actually, that's rest and managing stress. If you need to start looking after yourself, if you're feeling run down, you want to start to think about things like adrenal fatigue or other areas that might be affecting their health. So mindfulness, connection to oneself. So a lot of these things we neglect, and then that is another form of stress on the body. So you say, if you are feeling stressed, is there something natural or anxious or sad? Tap into the emotions here. Do you have something natural that you can turn to or something synthetic? And they rate themselves. And I always say, just wine doesn't count. Wine doesn't count in these areas. Reducing your toxic load. You can ask, what do you clean your floors with? What do you clean your shower with? What do you put on your skin? You can talk about your skin being your largest organ. So it's important to understand what we put on it. It goes into our bloodstream and affects our body just like anything else. So ask them, with all of these things in your home, are they natural or are they synthetic? When you're tired, when you're stressed, when you just feel like you just need to wind down after a busy day, do you have something natural that you can turn to manage your stress levels or helps improve your sleep quality at the end of the day? Or do you have to return to something synthetic? Exercise. Again, maybe this is not only exercise to move their body, maybe it's peak performance, maybe it's motivation to get moving in the first place. But I see this as the health of our body with exercise. So it's really important to say, like, do you move? Or, you know, how does your body feel? You know, how does your body feel? Like, check in, feel your knees, feel your back, feel your head, your shoulders, your stomach, and get them to check in with the physicality of their body and just see if anything comes up with that as well. And if there's any discomfort there, like a knee or a back or a head, do you have something natural that you can turn to, or is there something synthetic? And then finally, eat right, because this is a great one to not only incorporate lifelong vitality, it's also a great one to talk just for them. And quite often, you know, people who are health conscious worry about the things they put into their mouth, but they don't worry about the things that are in the air, the toxins and things they use to clean their home and etc. So you want to ask them, how does this impact their life? And then you want to finish at the end of it and you go, okay, look at all these numbers. How does that make you feel? And most of them are probably going to be on the lower side, and they're going to say, yeah, could be better. And some people say, that's really shit. And they just have never assessed their own life before. And then you can say, what would happen if we could move those points up a couple? You know, maybe they could go up 2 points or 5 points or 8 points. How would that make you feel? How would that impact your life? And then all of a sudden they can start to see the possibilities. And you haven't even talked about an oil yet. So you can see that this is really painting a picture for them, and it's a really important thing to practice, because this does take practice, but it is a lot of fun and it does encourage discussion. Then finally, after they've done all this, write down your top 3 areas that you would like to support after reflecting on the pyramid. And probably these 3 are going to be different to the 3 that they wrote at the start of the workshop. So get them to compare them, get to compare what they wrote and ask them questions. Often it's exciting to see them unravel the ways that they can start to use these oils in their home, and ask them to keep these in mind when we're talking about the oils. So when we go through the oils, again, we just want to keep it really simple. Only a couple of examples per oil, maybe a very brief story, and work through them systematically. I like to use this order. It just makes it easier for them to follow along, and ask them to follow along if they like. The 3 that have stars are, again, the 3 that I always have. I hand around the ice glue cream when I talk about ice glue. I send around the vapor stick when we talk about the vapor stick. And I normally send around the toothpaste or something equivalent when I talk about the On Guard or the On Guard beadlets or something like that. So again, they're getting incorporated, and I've talked about a lot of this and why I do this in my How to Activate Loyalty Rewards at the Time of Enrollment video. Talk about loyalty rewards. So I've actually done number 9 before number 8. I just found that flowed better. So I encourage them to activate it at the time of the class. One personal example of benefits is a really nice way, be it by yourself or maybe even the host. It's nice to incorporate someone else's point of view on this point. You know, emphasize that it's free to cancel. It's the only way to get free product. And I also just normally emphasize the fact that when you first start, you get 10% back, but after a year, you get 30% back, and you can monetize that by saying a 100-point order is 10 points, so it's like plus postage. You're getting about $20 worth of free stuff. After a year, you get 30% back, so that's 30 points plus postage. So it's about $50, $60 worth of free stuff from that same size order, just so they can get an idea of the difference that it makes by staying in the program. The reason I do loyalty rewards first is because then I go back and say, because that's kind of in the enrollment, and then I come back like, okay, how do you get this into your life? So I read through this. It's very, very simple. I do talk about renewal, because some people that question comes up. So after 12 months, a renewal is $25. That automatically gets added to your next order, but you also get gifted a peppermint, which is worth $25.50. So they're basically forcing you to buy a peppermint to reactivate or continue your wholesale account. So it's pretty awesome. And then from there, I go into the 3 ways to use that wholesale account. You see how it flows a little bit nicer, going wholesale account to wholesale account? And then I give brief examples, very brief examples on each of those. I might say, 85% of people just have this wholesale account to get these oils into their family and live a healthier, happier lifestyle. From that, people who fall in love with them want to start sharing with their friends and family. Even my mum has enrolled her girlfriend, so anyone can do this and make it something simple. And you just literally, and if you've read off this, they're going to realise that they can read off of that as well. And then, of course, you can obviously always build a business. It's a wonderful business opportunity. And you can give an example of myself. I would give my 6-figure income as an example, or before I was doing that, I would give Jessie Reimer's example. But either way, I would just say, if this is something, if you're interested in teaching about natural health as well, and you're looking for other forms of income in your family, feel free to talk to me after, and just leave it at that. And then you can see how doTERRA have actually brought in all of these things for the psychology of sale into the Empower Kit. So asking for your health challenges, you know, through our discussion, we've become evident of those. What are the impacts through the pyramid? And we've asked there as well, what does that look like when we resolve those, when we talk about the oils, which is amazing. Okay, and then we've also got time. So how soon would you like to start this journey is a really important question maybe to ask around that point of the enrollment kits, because you would love them, like when we say, this is what you have to do to leave with the oils today. So get your pen and fill out the last page, and I'll come around and start helping you to figure out the best way for you to start this journey. So you're allowing them again, giving them permission to start their journey today with the oils. So you're taking into budget consideration. So after you've gone through all the oils, you go through all the kit options, of course, and I always start with the bottom one first, talk about them all, talk about the largest one. I've got on Ikigai Oils, my Facebook page, I've got the savings of all of these kits off of wholesale price. So this is about 500, 400, 200 and something, about 80. So if you learn those numbers, it's nice for people to understand the savings involved with these. Taking into consideration everything we have discussed, what is it worth to you to have natural solutions in these areas? So that's, again, a lovely question that you can ask when talking about the different kits. Because all of a sudden, if they've been going to the naturopath, spending hundreds of dollars each month, and they can see by having a kit, if they save a couple of trips to the naturopath, they're going to have paid for itself. So it's a really good question to ask. And again, decision maker, who makes the healthcare decisions in your family? And we ask that very, very early on. So you've already covered that off. So we already know that they are the healthcare decision maker in the family. So once you've figured out the time, like when is this important for you to start? How soon would you like to start this journey? And they can say, like, yesterday, please. Or they say, oh, look, I cannot this month, but I'm definitely going to start next month once I've paid off my car insurance, you know? At least you've assessed that. You've assessed how much value these products have to them, because you've already assessed all of the issues that they've had, or many of the issues, and the changes they would like to make. And then you obviously know that they're okay to make the decision as well. So just keep it really simple. Okay, you might want to go back and re-watch this with your Empower Kit in front of you and write notes on it. But whatever it is, do what works for you, and this has to be your flavour. Okay, if reading off of this word for word doesn't sit well, that's okay. You know, it takes practice to find what works. I've tried a gazillion different ways. I've tried it the Vanessa Jean way, with completely not going off script, and I'm there for 3 hours. I've tried the just reading off of this and never going off of it, and it's felt really stale. And I've just found a really nice medium between the two. But I have found me coming back more to this just because it keeps it really simple. People don't get confused, because a confused person does nothing. And yeah, it's just a really lovely process to take people through, and it's beautiful to see the aha moments. And it's really nice because you kind of feel in control of the whole situation, which is important, because if you feel in control of the situation, the people in your presence will feel like they're being supported, and that there's a level of trust there, and that you know what you're talking about. So it's really nice to have that level of confidence and reassurance in yourself, even when you're crapping your dacks in the background, because you really are freaking out, which is very, very common. We have oils for that. So whatever it is, enjoy it. practice, practice, practice. The more you do, the better you get, and have fun. Mwah. Bye.